Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. Thanks for jumping on as we're going to be having a co-hosted event today between Clarifruit and Provision Analytics. Topic today is fresh produce, digital solutions in order to gain data-driven insights. We're looking forward to having conversations not only led by Elad Mardix and Eric Westblom of the CEOs of Clarifruit and Provision Analytics, respectfully. We're very excited to welcome Ignatius Chang and Parm Gill from two customers that are being served currently by Clarifruit and Provision Analytics. My name is Todd Fabeck. I am the commercial director with Clarifruit here in North America, and happy to be here today. And we'll be serving as the host and actually co-hosting with my colleague Kevin Davies this afternoon. And we look forward to chiming back in after Elad and Eric go through their piece of introduction, and then we'll jump in, Kevin and I, with our respected customers in a few moments. So turning it over to you, Elad and Eric, and happy to do so.
Perfect. So in this first segment of today, we're going to be doing an executive fireside chat between Elad Mardix, who is the co-founder and CEO of Clarifruit, and Eric Westblom, who is the co-founder and CEO of Provision. So welcome, Elad and Eric.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. We're very excited to be here.
Great. So Elad, why don't we start with you? Could you introduce yourself with a quick personal bio?
Sure. So great to see everyone today. I'm Elad. I'm the CEO, one of the three co-founders of Clarifruit. Clarifruit is about a 5-year-old startup, dual headquartered in Israel and New York. We'll talk much more about us in a few minutes. And together with my two founders, we started the business in mid-18. Before that, I used to be actually a technology investment banker with JP Morgan across US and Asia, and spent the majority of my career out of Israel. So we're excited to be here today and looking forward to the conversation with Eric and the team.
Great. Thanks, Elad. And Eric, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, very similar to Elad and the team at Clarifruit. Provision's been around since mid-2018. I spent the last, 15, 20 years of my career in a combination of technology startups and finance M&A type activity within the technology sector. Ended up working closely with Maersk in Copenhagen in mid-2018. We've built up the company since then. So a very similar kind of vibe and streamline with Clarifruit's history and building the platform.
Okay, perfect. So Elad, there's a lot of excitement in the market for AI, but not a lot of understanding yet about its potential and what it means for produce companies. So why don't we start with you? Can you tell us what Clarifruit does and how it streamlines quality control in fresh produce?
Sure, happy to do so. So what is Clarifruit? Clarifruit is a pure play software company. And our sole goal in life is to help the fresh produce supply chain automate the way quality is being evaluated across the entire supply chain, from the grower through the marketing company or packer, shipper, and wholesaler down to the retailer. The problem we're trying to attack is essentially the enormous waste that is taking place along the supply chain, which is being reflected in a lot of quality mismatches, right, between seller and buyer in each one of the points. And the way we're addressing this issue is by doing three things. The first thing we did is essentially building software that can digitize the way quality is being communicated and managed by the actual buyer and seller. So effectively, we created a common language for the entire supply chain to speak through. First step. Second step, that's where the AI comes into the game. We essentially build computer vision technology that enables you guys and your inspectors to actually take a picture through your smartphone or tablet and we automate the way quality is evaluated, whether it's size, color, defect, etc. So it's not about what Eric thinks about the quality in Canadian port versus Elad thinks about the quality 3 days later in a UK port. It's about what the machine thinks about the quality. And that's essentially the second step. And then the third step, which is where a lot of the integration and synergy with provision analytics is going to come through, is on the big data and analytics platform. We generate real-time information to the decision makers so they can make their important business decision, such as, should I ship it to Whole Foods or Walmart? Should I ship it to China or send the truck to San Diego? And you guys can make those decisions based on data rather than based on the intuition of the quality manager. That's really why we're establishing in a high level what we're doing for our customers.
That's amazing. So picturing it on the floor of a facility, there's constant pictures being taken of produce, and it's reading things like the color or the size of the produce to kind of be more data-driven in how quality is measured. That's great. Eric, could you tell us a little bit about Provision and what the software does and its role for the fresh produce supply chain?
Absolutely. So what we've built over the last 5.5, 6 years is a software platform to digitize and streamline all the process documentation around food safety, quality assurance, compliance, regulatory, supplier management, all of these workflows and processes that otherwise will slow down or hinder a produce company from getting their product to market. Complementary in the sense to quality control and overall quality, where Clarifruit's really tackling that. We capture some elements of that. But the piece that we're looking is to streamline and automate all of the data capture associated with those records. So streamlining policy and procedure documentation, even staff training when it comes to the various food safety programs that can exist within a grower, a packer, a shipper, a distributor. Think really of the first, half to 2/3 of the food supply chain. You've got programs like Primus GFS, Global Gap, SQF, BRC, all depending on what food safety system one of these companies or growers has put in place. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're configuring those programs digitally and then setting up the necessary functionality and scheduling for task management. So think about when you're doing records, when you're completing these, the streamlining of the rules and validation within the records themselves, where some of these records can capture up to 2,000 data points for a single entry point or requirement within the food safety program. And then lastly, the reporting to pull that out and streamline pre-audit execution, which can take anywhere from a day to 5 days in preparation, and then the actual audit execution that can take up to 2 days. Where we're seeing a lot of changes and shifts in the market, different companies having to achieve those audits. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was once a year. Now it's up to 5 times a year unannounced. And we're seeing the necessity to complete, 3,000 to 5,000 records in those workflows. So it's really bundling the information and making that entire workflow and offering seamless out to these different produce players in the supply chain.
Okay, great. So while Clarifruit is digitizing all of the quality data, Provision is digitizing all of the contextual data. So Clarifruit will tell you, how good the end product is, and Provision will tell you all of the practices that led up to that outcome. Elad, can you elaborate a little bit on how you see these two complementary solutions fitting together in a produce supply chain?
Sure. So I think as most of the attendees on this webinar know, there is a lot of synergies and integration actually between the actual software that drive the compliance and safety processes, which is what Kevin and Eric and Provision team is driving, versus the quality assurance or quality control processes, which is where we're focused on. I think those synergies in terms of actual workflows, we can divide them to 4 key buckets. Bucket number 1 is actually identifying potential issues in quality And I think that's probably where Clarifruit is going to drive the majority of the value. By automating the actual quality control process A, it's likely to result in significantly less quality mismatches and issues. But when there are issues, those issues are going to be essentially alerted instantly. We have an automatically generated report, and there are other alerts that you guys can instill. But the bottom line is that the detection of the issues is going to be performed much more efficiently and quickly through the Clarifruit platform. So that's kind of bucket number one. After we identify an issue, I think the next bucket is, okay, let's investigate in it and figure out what was the cause of that. I think that's where there is a lot of synergy between the raw data that we're gonna provide to the customer and the provision capabilities to investigate those issues and essentially perform a root cause analysis in an instant manner on that issue. I think the next natural step, if I were you guys, would be put together a plan, an action plan, in order to mitigate those kind of risk and issues down the road. And I think that's, again, where provision is going to drive most of the value and come on board with a lot of experience to drive those essentially work plans. And then finally, after we presumably investigated and put together a plan to improve this process down the road, you want to make sure that you can track it and monitor it in order to elevate essentially the benchmark quality performance of your supply. And again, that's where Clarifruit is going to come back into the driver's seat and make sure that the processes or the new processes are being adhered appropriately by the inspectors and by the QC managers.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I can see how it's a flywheel for continuous improvement, where you're finding issues faster, you're investigating them more clearly, you're actioning very specific responses, and then you're able to actually track the effectiveness and then continuously improve that cycle to really enhance both quality and safety.
Yeah, and I'll make one more point, which I know is on the mind of a lot of the attendees here. There are legacy solutions for both provision as well as Clarifruit in the market, right? And those solutions have existed for about, whatever, depends between, I would say, 10 to 18 years, depending on which platform we're talking about. And I think as you guys contemplate to replace either one of the quality or the compliance or both of them together, the seamless integration offering between provision and Clarifruit can actually offer a very smooth transition from your existing legacy solution to next generation solutions such as provision and Clarifruit. I know sometimes technology is important and driving the interest, but what really signs the deal is the ability to perform a smooth and seamless integration. And I think the combination of both of our platform will offer you a pretty smooth transition.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. We've really seen companies get efficient in combining all of their quality and safety data, and even within, safety or compliance, combining regulatory requirements with certification requirements with customer requirements. Eric, can you elaborate a little bit on, let's say an issue's been detected in Clarifruit. What would a root cause analysis look like for a company that's using provision to digitize all of their compliance documentation?
Yeah, Kevin, I think it goes back to what you said, is provision's really that contextual wrapper around the process and everything that's happening in the facility. So think about the ability to streamline and search, sort, summarize information, taking a look at what's happened, days away or a year away, and how things may or may not have changed. So that could be as simple as maybe even cleaning products used on a piece of equipment, or the actual maintenance and management on pre-op inspections around equipment. Or you could go back to something like harvest records, packing records, storage records, all of that raw data that is the ultimate context of what's happened to that fruit or vegetable as it's moved into and within a facility. So from there, now you can start to build and apply these corrective actions and preventative measures within the workflows themselves, so that the referential information is readily available in any language to the people on the floor, whether that be supervisory or people that are right hands-on actually packing or moving product. So you could think of different version control around that documentation as things change year over year. What practices and what workflows are you changing to manage and streamline the sorting of that information for the root cause analysis itself. Then the training and work instructions that can go out to staff to make this kind of a drumbeat within your organization. From there, then you can dig into scheduling and task management that can even start to drive things like non-conformances or deviations within that plan over time, which is not only maintaining your food safety compliance and scoring for your outbound market for your customers that are demanding that, but then maintaining that level of understanding kind of on a root cause analysis now associated to the actual procedures that are being done, ultimately gives it full context in complement with Clarifruit, who's doing the true root cause analysis on the fruit itself. So it ends up being kind of a 1-2 punch.
Okay, that's great. So picturing this, in a real world scenario, let's say Clarifruit instantly detects that fruit is too small for the quality grade that was intended. Somebody could go back into provision, and for that grower, they could instantly summarize in a custom report all of the spray applications for that grower and see if the application rate or if the product that was chosen perhaps led to a different kind of size outcome in the product at the point of harvest. And as you mentioned, provision can really streamline the follow-up action to that. Elad, can you speak a little bit as to how Clarifruit might then track the effectiveness of any corrective and preventive actions that are made by a grower packer in the supply chain?
Sure. So there's multiple paths to address this. I think the simplest one, which actually Fresh Direct, Ignacio from Fresh Direct is probably going to talk about that, is the initial process of digitalizing the quality spec of each one of you guys. And by the way, even if you wanted your customers' specs, is going to allow you to essentially create a common language on how you should inspect the supply and grade it. So there is no ambiguity whether this specific pallet is supposed to be A- or A+, whether it's the shipper or whether it's the buyer. And by that, we mitigate a lot of those quality mismatch that may have taken place unless they were digitized. I think the second thing I'll talk about is the reporting and analytics that are being offered through the Clarifruit platform. The way the QC works is that you use your smartphone to take a picture of the tomatoes behind. Now, you can collect the data through the computer vision from the camera in the phone, or you can integrate to a refractometer and get the data from there wirelessly, or you can enter the data manually. We don't really care. We care that all the data is being collected through the app, so it is coming in a structured manner. And the reason you're going to care that it's coming in a structured manner is that now, after you completed inspection from different vendors and suppliers, you can actually look at the dashboard of your Clarifruit platform, and you can literally figure out who's the supplier that gave me the sweetest Brix table grapes from the last 6 months from the South Hemisphere. And you can actually filter it on any metric or attribute that you collect, whether it's Brix size or a secondary color. And that's where the power of the data is going to come into the benefit of the customer to help you actually, create a benchmark of performance for your suppliers, and B, allow you to prioritize your vendors for the following year based on actual performance rather than based on promises or intuition.
That's amazing. So really getting the ability to track and trend, between suppliers and even within a supplier over time. We can all picture how valuable that information is for a manager within one of these companies. Eric, where are we at in companies kind of achieving that status? What's the maturity in that digital adoption cycle, and why do you think we're at that current phase?
Yeah, it's interesting, as I think that there's probably been a challenge in the last 10 to 15 years as more offerings come to market around usability. A lot of the solutions that have come out have capability, but they're really rough and difficult to use in terms of the actual user experience. These users, whether it's at the grower level or a packer level, have to get the data in there quickly, and they have to be able to use it with minimal training. So pick something up that is extremely usable in a quick manner with full access to all the information they need. The second element would be streamlining as much of the data population. I mentioned we've got some clients that are collecting 1,000 data points in one record. That's a lot of information to handwrite. That's a lot of information to put into a piece of software. So if you've got a digital offering, it's got to be driving the auto calculation and auto population in as much or as quickly as possible. The second would be the level of flexibility. The programs, the workflows, how these companies operate, a tomato company, a strawberry company, or somebody handling starfruit, that's going to be massively different in terms of requirements and risks. But then the facilities are going to be different, and their ultimate customers are going to be demanding different information. So that flexibility that gets then further compounded by the range of different food safety and quality programs that are out there. Many of the solutions that exist are extremely rigid, out of the box, and they force different produce companies to fit into a box that might not align with their operation. Fundamentally, that's where provision differentiates. We want the ability in our product to be flexible and usable for the customer. That's largely been the feedback today in the last 5 years that we've been rolling out to our 100+ clients, is how do you make it flexible and easy to use?
Okay, that's really valuable. And we can see that when operations have been on paper for the last 50 years, they're resistant to change. So I really agree with that importance of flexibility to really mirror the processes that they're used to and ease some of that digital transition. And obviously, as you've called out, the impact of having seasonal staff, maybe English as the second language staff, low software exposure staff, usability is really key. But the outcomes that companies are starting to uncover with the newest generation of solutions is that compliance and quality actually become faster, easier, and a little bit more accurate than if they were following the same procedures on paper. Elad, can you elaborate a little bit on the benefits that companies are seeing and any key metrics that you've seen impacted within fresh produce companies?
Sure. So we've seen 3 key buckets of value proposition in our 30+ customers over the last couple of years. Bucket number 1, which is very simple to actually realize even in a 30-day free trial, most of our customers will see that, is essentially the ability to make your existing QC process significantly more efficient through the automation of the QC process. We see somewhere between 30 to 60% of time and associated cost saving for the actual QC process, which is essentially the cost of the labor of the inspector and the associated cost around that. So that's bucket number 1, very visible and easy to realize. Bucket number 2 is the big data platform. There is no more need essentially to perform the manual process of the quality control, which requires not just manual inspection process, but actually manual reporting as well. So with Clarifruit, for example, there is an automatically generated QC report that can be sent to a supplier, a customer, sales team, and actually save probably by between 30 to 40% of the existing QC processes that most of you guys on the phone or on the webinar today taking place, as well as essentially giving you real-time analytics to make those important business decisions. Obviously, a cloud-based platform. We have an offline, online mode, so you can perform QC even if your guys are in field without reception, and get all the data into the cloud as soon as you have the receptivity. The third bucket, which is my favorite, I call it the Jerry Maguire bucket. And for the 40-year-old and above of us on this call, if you remember the movie and the major line, which was "Show me the money." At the end of the day, I think technology is exciting and interesting, but it's a tool. It's a tool to help you guys make either one of those two things. Either you can make more money on every pallet that you ship, or you can reduce costs associated with this operation. And at the end of the day, that's really the goal of all of the digital and AI-powered solution, is to help you guys make more money by adopting their solutions. In our experience, we've seen somewhere between 18 to 28% reduction of actual rejections, waste, relative to previous year rejections for the majority of our customers. We've already had one big customer who is Dole Sunshine from Asia come up with a 22% rejection number, and we hope to have a couple more guys coming up with those numbers. And that's really where the value is. The value is to help you guys make the better decisions so you can run a more profitable business.
Okay, that's great. So really, we're seeing companies reduce the cost of labor through efficiency, reduce the cost of shrink, and then also potentially gain revenue through having more market access because of their quality control. Eric, can you really give us your insight on what direction the compliance market is heading and how much more data is expected of produce companies through regulations, through certifications, through customer audits, and the likes?
Yeah, I think that this stuff varies by country, by continent, but really one of the biggest drivers has been FSMA in the last 15 years. If we look at the thesis that provision had in early 2018, we saw a lot of people talking about traceability from what we sort of coined as a macro traceability perspective, which is how does a product move through the supply chain between entities? We always viewed that as more of a macro problem, not a macro problem, but a micro problem. What is happening within the facilities that is impacting potentially the quality or the compliance of a product within FSMA itself? That's more or less become true as we're starting to see the FDA demand more information and data around recalls. Regulators are asking for more, certifying bodies, standards bodies, they're asking for more and more information. It's just unrealistic to continue to collect all of that on paper and exchange it with the people who need it or want it in a fast way. What compounds the issue now is we're seeing more regulations and changes to compliance happening internationally. In Europe, you've got, the Deforestation Act, which looks at kind of sourcing of raw materials from areas that may be illegally just deforested. Think about South America, where you could have beef production, palm oil, or any other agricultural product, or beyond that for construction and so on, demanding kind of source information there. You can get into the EU Green Rule, which is looking at elements of sustainability for investment, and even that broader umbrella around sustainability itself, with bodies like FSSC rolling out their own sustainability programs and formal standards by next year. Global Gap pushing elements of pollination records capture. This is just a further, I would say, burden on the growers and the packers to capture all this stuff in a meaningful and fast way. So we're looking at the opportunity to work with industry and work with partners like Clarifruit on how do we streamline this data capture and provide value back to the market with some of that information that's otherwise trapped in paper and analog processes.
Okay, so companies are being requested to capture more data. That's being audited more frequently. It's being audited with less notice, but that isn't just a requirement. It's also an opportunity. With all of that data that they're forced to capture, they're actually getting, a huge potential lake of information that they can pull into a really smart platform like Clarifruit in order to enhance the operation. So it's kind of a making a lemonade out of lemon situation. Elad, can you shed some light on how technology is evolving to use this information well?
So I think I'll focus specifically on AI. I think AI, the intersection between AI and fresh produce and quality, which is our world, I see two key vectors that are going to come on board in the next 12 to 24 months. Vector number one, which we've already driven the initial process of that, is really employing AI in order to convert the manual and human-driven inspection process to an automatic and objective one. And I think the gain here is going to be essentially less quality mismatches among seller and buyer. I think the second vector that we're just starting to see the potential now, but still not yet in the market, is how actually the generative AI and ChatGPT capabilities are going to come into the game. For example, we're building ChatGPT functionality into our analytics platform now. So that would enable you to essentially converse with the platform and literally ask it, oh, can you please tell me who was my top supplier in terms of bricks level in the last 6 months in table grapes? And instead of creating reports on your own, you're going to be able to drive the insights through conversational AI. And I actually think this could be extremely value add for you guys, for the users of our technologies, because it will make the adoption of the platform and the ease of use significantly better and easier than it is today.
Yeah, that's really impactful. So whereas in the past, companies who had a ton of data might not have known exactly how to use it, the technologies that are coming out today are really capable of dynamically interacting with huge volumes of data very fast. So companies are able to extract value from it, much easier. And that's a really exciting opportunity. So Elad, Eric, thanks for your insight. I'm sure that everyone here has more questions for you. We'll stick around to the end and we'll open the floor up for some audience Q&A, anything that comes through the chat here. So thanks again, you two.
Awesome.
In our next segment, we are going to take a look at how some of this is coming to life with clients. So we'll be welcoming in Parm Gill from VersaCold, who has been a client of Provisions for about 2 or 3 years. So Parm, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about VersaCold and your role in the company?
For sure. So Lineage Logistics Canadian division, also previously known as VersaCold. We were recently acquired by Lineage, so no longer VersaCold. But I'll speak on the Canadian division. We provide temperature control logistics services to customers across Canada, terminals basically in all provinces of Canada. And I'm one of the business analysts here at Lineage. My day-to-day involves using data analytics to assess processes, determine requirements, and deliver data-driven recommendations and reports to executives. I've been involved with Provision from day one, including working alongside with the developers and to custom tailor a solution that fits our business needs and requirements, and was also involved in the implementation throughout our organization.
Okay, great. So I can imagine, with the just shocking amount of produce that you guys handle, you'll inevitably encounter overages, shortages, damages. So what kind of decisions do you have to make when you see, those customer claims come through, Parm?
So the first piece is the claim categorization piece, right? You need to determine, well, was it an overage, shortage, or damage? Then you need to assess responsibility. Who was at fault? Was it the customer that shipped it like that, the VersaCold terminal? Was it line haul or the final mile third delivery? So then assess responsibility, and then you also need to determine which stage of the supply chain did the fault occur, how did it occur, and how do we prevent it from reoccurring?
Okay, that's probably a lot to wrangle. What did that look like when you were in paper or Excel, whatever it was before?
So before it, all of the paperwork was housed at the individual terminals throughout Canada. So if there was a claim, our claims admin would need to reach out to the terminals. Then they would go through their piles of paperwork, right, and get that sent back to her. So first of all, this eliminated the need for paperwork being stored at the terminals. Now we have it stored in Provision where anyone in the company can access it. And then we also needed a process in place in order to pass BRC certification. So we needed to show them our paperwork was in order and we were following a proper auditing process. So.
Okay, perfect. So I can imagine, just the process of flipping through all those binders to find the right piece of paper when you had a certain claim come through was really tough. So, there's probably some obvious time savings there, but why don't you shed a little light on the business impact of using Provision? How have you seen, measured benefits come through for you guys in efficiency or, in customer relations, whatever it may be?
So the business impact of using Provision, like reduction in labor in analyzing and processing claims, reduction in claims payouts, reduction in insurance premiums, happier customers, and like the overall process, like it's really streamlined now, right? And finding and sharing the information quicker and faster, more confident in the claims decision.
Okay, no, that sounds fantastic. And now that you guys have this critical mass of data, you've got, 2 years of data on all of your facility work, all of your product interactions. How are you going to start leveraging that? And what does the future look for you guys in using Provision at Lineage?
So now we have it really nailed down to the different types of claims, the types of claims that were recurring, right? So now we have adjusted our business practices to prevent them from reoccurring and doubling down on trending and analytical insights to provide Lineage Canada the competitive advantage. Now it's like really quick to identify like the problem areas, whereas before you had all of this paperwork and nothing to kind of visualize it, right? We're using the data from Provision and creating our own Tableau reporting, which is awesome, right? Like we know exactly what's happening and how to prevent it from reoccurring.
Okay, great. So really when you guys digitized, you started with a lot of efficiency in the claims management process. And then once you had critical mass in the data, you were able to use tools like Tableau, BI tools to really trend and visualize the process and achieve greater process control over time.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, that was really helpful, Parm. I appreciate you joining us on stage today. Parm will also be available at the end for any of you who have questions for him. I'll now turn the stage back to Todd, and Todd, you can take it away from here.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. Hi, Ignatius. We're up. So this is great. Just a bit of an introduction, and this is about Ignatius describing how Clarifruit's helping Fresh Direct Produce. Fresh Direct Produce is a very dynamic wholesaler that's carrying thousands of SKUs of an amazing assortment of categories within produce and vegetables, and we're really psyched to have them as a customer. So the first question would be, Ignatius, if you could kindly introduce yourself and what is your role at Fresh Direct and how you folks do business.
Yeah, hi, my name's Ignatius. I'm the QA specialist at Fresh Direct. I started around 2 years ago with the company. So our company has 2 warehouses in Vancouver, and then we also have one in Calgary, and we also have sister companies in Toronto and on the Vancouver Island. Our business is basically it's running 24 hours a day. The warehouse doesn't stop. And then right now, we're looking for a way to streamline our QC process and make it more efficient and then better, easy on the record keeping.
Right. Ignatius, your throughput in the vast assortment of SKUs. It's everything's fast. Orders are coming in with lots of dynamicism, and you're growing as a company, which is terrific. So, as was mentioned earlier in the webinar, companies, when they go through growth spurts like this or strategic growth, they look for support from technology as the possibility to support that scalability. When did you and the leadership team decide to look for future state solutions to replace, the current state?
I think we started looking around beginning of this year, and then we only really started looking into it around March. We're zooming into different kind of software apps out there that we can use. And yeah, and then I think we decided to use Clarifruit in July.
Excellent.
And then
Well, thanks for that. I think before we talk about the business impact Clarifruit's had, because we helped, digitize and take you to the level that you're working with the platform now, what were some of the key elements you were looking for from a vendor to modernize, to help with achieve this, next level of QC for your inspectors and for your QC leadership team?
Yeah, so we first and foremost, we want something that's easy to use, because we have multiple QCs and users within our company. So easy to use is one of the main thing. And then we want unlimited quality standards, because we have so many customers and clients that we want to set up different grades for different customers. And want to be something that we can customizable, not just the standard, but also things that we look for and how we do the reports. So, and then that we can do it on ourselves too. So, and then also last thing is like structure and data reporting. So we want something that's uniform across our company, so we can send out the same kind of documents, same kind of reports, and then conduct the same kind of inspections for our company.
Excellent. Given those, requirements to really holistically help the overall business, we really appreciate you choosing Clarifruit. I guess the big question is, from that perspective of the goals and the outcomes that you wanted with finding a partner, talk about the business impact for, for the inspector, for you and your QC management team. How's Clarifruit, working and helping you guys today as a benefit?
Yeah, so I mean, the platform is very easy to use. We have multiple stakeholders looking at the apps when we first introduced. So it's very easy to use, very easy to understand. Okay, and the reports, we're looking to like reports that can be customizable, so we can get the exact information that we need to go back to our suppliers, if we see any issues with our products, or show our customers what we saw before we ship it out. So when there's a discrepancy, we can discuss with them with proofs and reports. And then right now we are it also help us with the reduction of customer objections because of that. And we can, so we are still in the early stage, but in the future we're want to look into like data analysis. So we want to look at trending, so things that we see often in reports, so we can see where we can improve, what we need to change, and in order to control our quality more.
Excellent. Earlier in the conversation in the webinar, we were talking about the adoption of technology, like the two great companies on the phone here today. So the first question I wanted to say is, from a self-serve perspective, Ignatius, we show you how to have you mentioned you were requiring or needed unlimited quality standards for produce and vegetable categories, which number in well over 100. So obviously we provided that. So we'd help you digitize the quality standards. Talk about the inspection processes, and you as the super user of Clarifruit, the ease of use to add processes, edit them, make changes to the quality specs. What's your experience so far there?
So far is so good. I mean, it's, just took me like a few days to get used to the platform. And then, it's very clear on what we can do. Hey, and then if it's not clear, we always, have Sebastian helping us. I can go to him anytime and he can just help me and then, or find a solution for us. So, to find a way that best suits our business.
Awesome. You've already mentioned you have some future goals and how to optimize Clarifruit, reduction of rejections, and then obviously trending. So we're really excited to help with the trendings in both directions towards the customer, downstream and also upstream to your suppliers. To save time for questions that come in from our attendees today, thank you, Ignatius, for spending a couple of moments here. And I think at this point, probably be best to open up for questions and have a discussion.
Thank you.
Perfect. So we have one question in the public audience chat here that I think we can probably direct to you, Elad. They're wondering what commodities are available in the AI library, as they're phrasing it. You might have different terminology for that, but what commodities could Clarifruit analyze, and what commodities are in the works for you guys? You might just be on mute there, Elad.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, the AirPods connection. Great question. Two answers for that. Answer number one is that the Clarifruit platform actually supports all available fresh produce categories out there. Okay, so if you're a Walmart and you sell 130 produce categories on your shelf, we're going to help you manage the entire 130 produce categories portfolio. And you're going to get the benefit of the mobile app and the management and analytic dashboard in all the big data and analytics benefits. Where the AI comes into the game at this point is that you can actually use the smartphone to take a picture, and we will automatically analyze external attributes such as color and size and stem color, let's say. And at this point, we support 24, 25 produce categories, which will probably represents about 60% of the fresh produce volume of a typical Walmart. And it would be the most popular 24 categories, including tomato and the berry family and grapes and a bunch of others. But for all the others, we're just not going to be able to analyze the external attributes automatically at this point, and the inspector is still going to need to enter the data manually. But all the rest of the platform benefits are going to be exactly identical to the rest of the categories. I see the other half of the question is, how do we charge? We employ a typical SaaS monthly subscription model, essentially per user, per month, somewhere between $100 to $200, depending on exactly the technology that you're going to choose. And if there's any interest, you guys can follow up with us or Todd at the outset of the conversation.
Okay, perfect. And Eric, we can probably share the back half of that question with you as well. What are the pricing buckets for somebody who's getting started in provision?
Yeah, so similar, we started about $99 per user per month to get started. And then think of it as a reverse S curve. The more users you add, the more we compress that per user cost. So scaling down anywhere to $50 to $40 per user per month if you've got these larger facilities that are coming on with 50, 60, 100 users.
Okay, good stuff. And we've got another question in the public chat here. As a reminder for everyone, you can use the chat if you want to participate in this Q&A. Another question we have in the public chat is one that we can probably start with you, Eric. Can you give some examples of how quality documentation might cross over with compliance or food safety documentation, and maybe an example that we can use where hey, there's been a quality deviation detected in Clarifruit, how might they perform a root cause in provision?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. I'm sure we could go on and on finding these, but one would be something like pest control impact. We could go back to those actual records on farm to take a look at the documentation associated with a Primus GFS or a global gap for maybe herbicide and pesticide application. What did that look like on the harvest records? How did that correlate to quality control within a packer? You could get into, the correlations of dirty fruit or something like that and how it's associated to washing equipment. Or then something that's more, akin to food loss would be bruising and damage. You could look at maintenance along a sorting line, or even looking at package and storaging records. Is there any correlation to the locations and how the fruit or veg is being stored within the food safety records, correlated back to what Clarifruit is pulling out with relativity to potential damage or bruising?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we've really seen, that compliance documentation has grown in scope to basically cover almost every interaction with the field, the pack line. So, there's so much data in there that correlates to the quality outcomes. You can kind of pick your example. Elad, are there any others that come to mind that you want to elaborate on, or are you good to move forward?
No, I think we should move forward.
Okay, perfect. So one question that we got here in the private chat, Eric, we can kind of start with you on this one. What does it look like for someone to get started with digital documentation? I'm picturing that they've got all sorts of paper or Excel-based record templates today. What are their initial steps to, get digital data that they can then feed into these programs?
Yeah, this is the beauty in our process that has really helped with this onboarding. You look at programs like SQF, BRC in the case of PARM, or again, Global Gap, Primus GFS. These programs will have anywhere from 30 to 200 different templates. In almost all cases, it's Excel, it's PDF, it's Word docs, it's paper manufactured templates. You send all of those to provision. We configure the whole program as you have it laid out, offering, improvements in process along the way. We've got that process down from what used to take us 6 months to about 20 days now. So you send it to us in kind of that 20-day window. Our team will configure and set up all of the forms, all the records, and all the workflows for you. Then we'll go back, make sure everything is aligned with your team, and then push the ball forward on rolling it out sequentially to either the departments you want or the facilities you want, with full-blown kind of handheld training.
Okay, great. So there's a full implementation service, so managers don't have to, worry about cutting out the time to do it themselves. Elad, do you want to give us a sense of what that looks like for Clarifruit as well? The implementation process.
Sure. Important question, because I know that usually for a new quality assurance process or implementation could be a painful process for you guys. With Clarifruit, because of the digitalization, the language that we created, where we can digitize your specs, the implementation process should probably take somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks. Initially, it's essentially composed of, I would say, 3 key components. Component number 1, we will assign a project manager that will help you guys digitize the initial few specs and train you. That's the most important thing. Component number 2 is the customer herself, the admin of the system, can actually digitize all the rest of the spec on her own, or with the Clarifruit project manager help if you choose to. And then component number 3 is essentially roll it out in the organization and roll it out within your different DCs or packing houses in your inspector team. And again, depending on the size of your organization, I would say somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks. That's been our experience.
Okay, that's great. Well, I'm conscious of us running up on time here, so we'll cut the audience Q&A there. I'm sure that people can visit the Clarifruit or the Provision website. If they have additional questions, they can reach out. Todd, do you want to take it away from here?
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you for everyone attending today and sharing all this wonderful information. There will be a recording that has taken place of this webinar, and we'll be happily be sharing it back out to one and all who attended today. Ultimately, there's a couple of questions that I've seen come through, and I'm more than happy to follow up and want to invite any and all to reach out with any questions that bubble up or come top of mind after today's session. And to finish up, thanks everyone. It's been a terrific hour. Hopefully it's been valuable to you as well.
And thanks to our customers, Ignatius and Palm, for participating and adding your own perspective for the audience. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.